Let's talk about how to paint skin on our models fast. My name is Hero Song, and I'm going to be painting some Namari thralls today. But this technique will work on any model with any color skin. Here you can see my Sylvaneth Spirit models, as well as a model from Moonstone, a really cool game with some amazing models that I've been enjoying painting recently. I went ahead and primed these models with Vallejo Black Surface Primer. I always brush on my primer since I live in an area that's often too cold for spray cans and I don't have an airbrush. Now it's time to base coat these fish boys. I'm going to go ahead and do that with some Celestra Gray, and I'll be honest with you, I was not overwhelmingly impressed with the coverage of this paint, but after a few slightly thin coats, I got my thralls looking nice and oceany gray. Anytime you're painting minis, it's really important to paint the hard to reach places on your model before anything else. It will save you a ton of time. This is the single biggest tip I can give you, and since these guys are mostly skin, it's a pretty good place to start. It's especially important in this painting method though, since we will be dry brushing a lot, so I strongly recommend that you do this step before painting anything else on your model. Now we'll take a big, somewhat old and crappy brush and get out our Nuln Oil. Since I want these guys to be gray, I'll use a slightly moistened brush to pull the Nuln Oil out of the pot. If you were painting something ghostly or wanted to impart some color on the model with the wash, this is where you would do that with, again, a colored wash. There's a couple ways to apply washes. In this case, we want to wash every part of our skin so that whatever color we're imparting onto the skin touches each part of it. We're going to add more color to this model later, so don't worry about darkening it up. We want to apply big brushfuls of this stuff to our model with a sort of dabbing motion, moving our brush quickly and trying to leave the wash wherever it goes naturally. We don't want to move the wash around too much once it's on the model, or it can end up looking streaky and outside the recesses of the model, which is where we want it. If you end up with some pooling, you can dry your brush a little bit and wick it away, but it is important to be careful to not move the wash around too much when possible. Let the wash dry and grab your dry brush of choice. If you don't have a dedicated dry brush, I recommend you get one. I got this set on Amazon for under 25 bucks. I used a small sponge that was included in the set with a few drops of water in it to moisten my brush, and then grab out a bit of Morghast bone. I want these guys to have a tiny bit of flesh color on them, but not so much that they look like my other elves that have souls and don't live in the deep water, so I'm making sure that I only have a tiny bit of pigment on my brush. I use an old wet palette I don't use anymore to hold the paint and see how much is coming off of my brush. I also use the back of my thumb so that I can physically feel the wetness of the brush. You want it to feel like the tiniest bit moist to touch, and you want to see paint coming off with a little bit of pressure. I use a super light and quick stroke pattern on the model. I'm not dabbing my brush at the model because that will fill the deep recesses that we just washed, which we don't want. It's better in this step to brush more gently than less gently, since you can always add more paint and go over it again, but it's a little bit harder to fix if you get too much paint on the model. Also, if your brush is too dry, this can end up looking a little bit chalky, so you do need to experiment a bit to find the right balance of water and pressure. These models certainly look good enough for the table, and if you want to stop here after you're done dry brushing, you definitely can. But if you have a bit of extra time and want to go the tiniest bit further, there's one more step that I find takes this method to the next level. We're going to add a little bit of the color we just dry brushed onto the model and apply it to the areas we really want to draw people's eyes as a sort of edge highlight. We want to have our paint nice and thin, but slightly thicker than a glaze consistency. If you don't know what that means, we're looking for our paint to come off the brush really easily, but not too thick. It should run nicely off the brush, but not leave behind too much pigment. The most important place to do this is the face. Humans can identify faces really easily, and our eyes will naturally be drawn to models' faces whenever we look at miniatures. This will enhance your paint job a ton. Remember that wet paint is always going to seem a little brighter than it does when it dries. So if you're worried that you added a little bit too much color, you can always wait until it dries to see if it looks better then, but if not, feel free to take a big wet brush and wick it away from the model a bit. And with that, we are done. Thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it. I have a few more painting videos I expect to be releasing soon, so please let me know in the comments if you have any ideas or things you'd like to see me do. Also, if you're enjoying these videos, please let me know with a like or a comment. My name is Hero Song, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.